The only sound in the Hürtgen Forest was the drip of cold rainwater from skeletal pines. It was November 16, 1944, a dank afternoon beneath a leaden sky. A soldier from Company A, 22nd Infantry Regiment, 4th Infantry Division, moved cautiously along a muddy firebreak, the world reduced to a narrow corridor of freezing mist and decaying ferns. The silence was a trap. The crack of the rifle shot was startlingly loud. A single 7.92 mm Kurz round from a German Gür 43 snapping past the American's head, slamming into a tree trunk with a wet thud. He dove into a shell crater, heart hammering against his ribs, the smell of damp earth and cordite filling his nostrils. He was pinned. Somewhere in that gray-green tangle of branches and shadows, a German sniper had him zeroed. The American, following his training, raised his M1 Garand over the crater's lip and fired off his remaining rounds toward the suspected position, the reports echoing through the woods. Then it happened. A sharp, high-pitched ping, the distinctive sound of the Garand's empty N-block clip ejecting, ringing out with metallic clarity in the sudden quiet. To the listening German sniper, this was the signal he'd been taught to wait for. U.S. military intelligence documents confirmed German snipers were trained to listen for that sound, the telltale herald of an American infantryman's 10-second vulnerability as he fumbled to reload with loose rounds. In his concealed position, the sniper felt a surge of tactical certainty. The enemy was empty. He began to shift for a clear, final shot, exposing a fraction of his silhouette. It was a fatal misjudgment. The GI in the crater wasn't reloading with single rounds. In one fluid motion, his thumb was already pressing a fresh, full 8-round clip into the open receiver. The bolt slammed home. In less than 2 seconds, he was back on target. What the German heard next was not the cautious single shot of a reloading man, but the devastating, rapid bang-bang-bang of .30-06 semi-automatic fire stitching through his position. The duel was over, reversed in a heartbeat. A captured German report from Normandy would later concede, with stunned respect, the rapidity of fire from the American semi-automatic rifle often gives the impression of a light machine gun. But how did this iconic American weapon, with a sound that seemed to broadcast its user's momentary weakness, become the tool that dominated the close-range battlefield and turned the tables on its mockers? The opposing philosophies that would collide in the hedgerows and forests of Europe were forged in the aftermath of the First World War. For the United States, the traumatic experience of trench warfare bred a profound doctrinal obsession. Fire and movement. American strategists envisioned a future war of mobility, where the individual infantryman's ability to lay down rapid, aimed fire from the advance would be decisive. This concept, dubbed walking fire, drove a relentless pursuit of a self-loading service rifle. The goal was to transform every soldier into a source of overwhelming base firepower. After a tortuous development cycle, this vision was realized in 1936 with the official adoption of John C. Garand's design. The M1 rifle was a revolutionary tool for an offensive doctrine. As historian William S. Brophy notes, it was engineered to unleash the potential of the American rifle squad, giving 8 men the sustained firepower previously requiring an entire platoon. It was a weapon built for the assault. German doctrine evolved down a starkly different path. The Gruppe, or squad, was not built around the rifleman but was a machine gun team with riflemen attached. The iconic, belt-fed MG-34, and later the terrifyingly rapid MG-42, was the undisputed heart of German infantry tactics. The rifleman, or Schützen, armed with the superb but slow-firing bolt-action Mauser Karabiner 98K, had a primary mission to protect, supply, and position the machine gun. Their 1942 manual, Ausbildungsvorschrift für die Infanterie, made this hierarchy clear. The machine gun set the pace and axis of fire. The rifle supported it. Within this system, the sniper, or Scharfschütze, held a specialized and respected role. Often using a carefully selected and scoped version of the standard 98K, he was a force multiplier. His mission was surgical. Eliminate officers, radio operators, and machine gun crews, sow paralyzing fear, and disrupt enemy movement. He was a predator of patience and precision, trained to identify and exploit any enemy weakness. This set the stage for a fundamental and violent dissonance. The American Army, built around the concept of the aggressive, semi-automatic armed rifleman, would advance into terrain perfectly suited to the German defensive doctrine. In the close, viscera-tight lanes of the Normandy hedgerows, and later in the dark, tangled woods of the Hürtgen, the stage was set for a brutal close-quarters laboratory. The fast-firing but audibly pinging M1 Garand would meet the slow, silent, and patient German sniper. One system valued volume of fire from every man. The other valued precision fire from specialized tools. The ping of the ejected clip was not yet a famous flaw. It was merely an unexamined mechanical characteristic. But in the ears of a trained German hunter, it was about to be reinterpreted as a lethal invitation. The doctrinal gap between the two armies guaranteed this sound would be heard, noted, and ultimately weaponized. The German sniper who waited in the Normandy hedgerow or the Hürtgen treeline was a master of his grim craft. His primary tool was a meticulously tuned version of the standard infantry rifle, a Mauser Karabiner 98K fitted with a Zeiss or Hensoldt 4 power scope. It was a weapon system built for perfection in a single moment, the first shot kill. Its 5-round internal magazine was almost an afterthought. If a sniper needed more, he had likely already failed. As detailed in works like the German Sniper 1914-1945 by Peter R. Senich, his training was exhaustive, forging a hunter of supreme patience, camouflage artistry, and hyper-awareness. He was taught to become part of the landscape, to read wind and light, and, critically, to listen. The battlefield soundscape was his intelligence feed. The chatter of specific machine guns, the shouts of officers, and the distinct mechanical signatures of enemy weapons. It was from this school of sensory warfare that the M1 Garand's ping was identified, analyzed, and catalogued as a tactical vulnerability. A captured German training note, chillingly reprinted in a 1944 U.S. military intelligence document, spelled it out with cold clarity. American rifle M1 Garand emits a clearly audible metallic ping when the clip is ejected after the last round. This can indicate to an alert enemy that the soldier is empty and reloading. This was not rumor, but verified Allied intelligence confirming the enemy's exploitation of the flaw. The sniper's playbook was logical and methodical. Engage an American soldier or fire team to fix their position, then cease fire. In the sudden quiet, he would listen intently. Upon hearing that distinctive ping, his tactical calculus was complete. The American was momentarily helpless, fumbling with a new 8-round clip. This was the sniper's moment to shift for a clearer, killing shot, often exposing himself minimally in the belief his target was defenseless. This knowledge bred more than just a tactic. It fostered a sense of mocking confidence. To the German sniper, the ping was a tangible, almost comical flaw in American engineering, a stark contrast to the silent bolt-action reliability of his own Mauser. It was a chink in the armor of the otherwise formidable U.S. infantryman, a piece of technical arrogance that played directly into the German strength of precision and patience. The sound became a psychological weapon, reinforcing a perceived technical and tactical superiority. It confirmed a narrative. For all its rapid fire, the American weapon had a built-in betrayal. Armed with this knowledge and confidence, German snipers in Normandy and the Hürtgen believed they held a decisive auditory advantage. What their intelligence reports failed to capture, however, was how American soldiers and their revolutionary rifle would turn that supposed weakness into a devastating trap. For the American rifleman in his first firefights, the M1's celebrated rate of fire came with a terrifying coda: the high, ringing ping of the empty clip ejecting. In the sudden silence following an exchange of shots, the sound seemed to echo with lethal clarity. As veteran Donald R. Burgett of the 101st Airborne recalled, "You hated that ping. In the quiet after the firing stopped, it sounded as loud as a church bell, telling every German in hearing distance, 'Here I am, and I'm empty.'" This was not a theoretical concern but a visceral fear experienced in the hedgerows and rubble. The moment of reloading, a universal vulnerability for any soldier, was uniquely broadcast by the American weapon system. The Germans didn't have to see you. They could hear your moment of weakness. After-action reports from Normandy, Italy, and the Hürtgen Forest, while rarely specifying the ping as the direct cause, consistently note casualties occurring during reloading or weapon malfunctions. The 29th Infantry Division's reports from the bloody fighting at St. Lo, for instance, detail men being hit while attempting to reload under fire. The tactical vulnerability was real, tangible, and paid for in blood. This perceived flaw even drew skepticism from America's allies. British and Canadian observers, accustomed to the Lee Enfield's 10-round magazine loaded via stripper clips, often viewed the Garand's en-bloc clip system as an unnecessary complication, a mechanical quirk that created this very problem. Why lock into an 8-round capacity with a noisy ejection? They wondered, when a detachable magazine or stripper clips offered quieter, more flexible replenishment. Thus, the core challenge was starkly defined. The United States had gambled its entire rifle squad doctrine on a revolutionary semi-automatic weapon. Yet, this weapon possessed an inherent, mechanical signature that trumpeted its user's brief vulnerability to an enemy specifically trained to listen for it. The Germans knew the sound, understood its meaning, and had a trained response. The ping was not a myth. It was a designed-in characteristic that became a tactical liability in the silent moments of close combat. The question hanging over every squad leader and every rifleman clutching their M1 was no longer about firepower, but about adaptation. Could American ingenuity, training, and sheer battlefield pragmatism overcome what appeared to be a fatal engineering flaw? The American response to the ping vulnerability was not a single secret weapon, but a rapid, bottom-up evolution of tactics that transformed doctrine through sheer necessity. The adaptation began officially but was perfected in the field. U.S. Army training circulars and the 1944 Rifle Company Manual explicitly emphasized reloading under cover and the critical importance of always having a second clip ready. This moved from good advice to drilled instinct. Soldiers trained to keep a fresh 8-round clip positioned in their belt or pouch with the thumb ready on top, shaving crucial seconds off the reloading sequence under fire. From this foundation emerged an even faster, informal innovation, the double-clip technique. As chronicled by historians like William S. Brophy and corroborated by countless veterans, GIs would tape or rubber band 2 en-bloc clips together, jungle style. When the first clip emptied and pinged away, the rifleman simply flipped the assembly and jammed the second preloaded clip into the receiver. This reduced the vulnerability window to under 2 seconds, maintaining a near-continuous barrage of fire. It was a crude but brilliantly effective field modification that directly countered the German sniper's timing. This highlighted the Garand's true, overwhelming strength, its volume of aimed fire. The German sniper's tactic relied on a pause after 8 shots. But a trained rifleman could deliver those 8 rounds of .30-06 in 10 seconds or less. This torrent of fire was psychologically and tactically suppressive. It forced enemies, snipers included, to keep their heads down, disrupting aim and creating the very cover needed for a safe reload. At the unit level, squads instinctively began covering each other's reloads. The ping from one soldier's rifle became a signal for his buddy to increase his own rate of fire, providing mutual protection and turning individual vulnerability into team-based fire discipline. Then came the masterstroke, using the ping as bait. This was an emergent, frontline tactic born of hard experience, not official doctrine. Knowing a sniper was listening for the telltale sound, seasoned veterans would employ a deadly ruse. A soldier would fire 7 rounds, then take cover. Using his thumb, he would manually trip the clip latch, ejecting the partially full clip and the remaining round, producing the identical ping. He would then wait, a fresh clip ready, his rifle aimed at the suspected hiding place. The German sniper, hearing the expected signal of an empty weapon, would often believe the moment of maximum advantage had arrived. As he shifted to acquire his supposedly helpless target, he exposed himself. The waiting American would then fire a single aim shot or unleash the full 8 rounds of the fresh clip. The hunter had become the hunted. Through training, ingenuity, and sheer volume of fire, American riflemen were rewriting the rules of the duel. The ping was no longer just a warning. In the right hands, it was becoming the hook in a trap. And in the close-quarter meat grinders of 1944, that trap was about to be sprung on a massive scale. The duel between the German sniper and the American rifleman reached its terrifying peak not on open battlefields, but in 2 of the most claustrophobic and brutal landscapes of the European war, the Normandy bocage, and the Hürtgen Forest. These arenas became perfect, terrible laboratories for infantry combat, where battles were decided by squads and individuals in knife-fight ranges, rendering grand strategy secondary to the snap judgment of a single soldier. The bocage of Normandy presented a nightmarish labyrinth. Ancient, dense hedgerows, earthen mounds crowned with tangled roots and trees, divided the countryside into thousands of isolated, walled fields. Visibility was often under 50 yards. Movement was funneled into sunken lanes perfect for ambush. In this green, confined maze, the battle was reduced to its most intimate sensory components. The crack of a sniper's Mauser and the following thump of the bullet impacting dirt. The rapid bang-bang-bang of a Garand returning fire, followed by the telltale, high-pitched ping of the empty clip. These sounds formed the relentless soundtrack of the advance. Here, every field was a separate battle, every hedge wall a potential curtain hiding a patient hunter. The Hürtgen Forest, that dark sprawl east of the Belgian border, offered an even more oppressive and disorienting hell. A dense plantation of tall, closely packed fir trees created a perpetual, damp twilight. The ground was a treacherous morass of mud, shell craters, and decaying pine needles. In this eerie, silent world, light was diffused and sound behaved strangely, muffled by the thick foliage one moment, then reflected and channeled down a firebreak the next. Identifying the direction of a single shot or the faint metallic ping of a clip ejection was a vital, life-saving skill. The forest absorbed armies, breaking them down into small groups groping blindly toward an unseen enemy. In both settings, a pervasive paranoia took hold. A rustle in the hedgerow, a snapped twig in the forest gloom, the distant, echoing ping from another squad's engagement. Each could signal instant death or a fleeting opportunity. This hyper-awareness elevated every sensory clue to critical intelligence. It was within this pressurized, close-quarter environment that the psychological war over a simple mechanical sound reached its zenith. The ping was no longer just a feature of a rifle. In the silent moments between explosions in the bocage and under the cathedral-like quiet of the Hürtgen firs, it became a character in the drama, a note that both sides listened for, each believing they could write its fatal finale. The learning was brutal, immediate, and paid for in blood. Consider a composite, historically accurate vignette of a rifle squad from the 29th Infantry Division, moving through the oppressive green tunnel of a Normandy hedgerow late in June 1944. The air is thick with the smell of damp earth and blooming hawthorn. The point man signals a halt. Everyone freezes, listening. Then, from across the small, enclosed field, the sharp crack of a rifle. A muzzle flash, glimpsed for a fraction of a second in the shadowy base of the opposite hedgerow. Instinct takes over. The squad's automatic rifleman opens up with his bar. Rifleman John Miller, taking cover behind an ancient oak root, spots movement. He raises his M1, steadies his breathing, and begins firing aimed shots at the enemy position. Bang, bang, bang. In the heat of the moment, he loses count. His 8th round discharges. A fraction of a second later, the high, metallic ping of the empty clip echoes across the silent field. It is the sound the German sniper, concealed in a camouflaged perch in a tree line 20 yards to the left, had been waiting for. His focus shifts from general suppression to a specific, vulnerable target. He begins to adjust his position for a clean shot at Miller, who is now exposed, reaching for a fresh clip. But the American squad leader, Sergeant Makiewicz, had also heard the ping. The sound triggered not panic, but a drilled response. Even as Miller fired his last round, Makiewicz had already raised his own Garand, tracking the likely threat axis. He saw the faint stir in the foliage as the sniper moved. Makiewicz fired 3 rapid rounds into the tree line. The German sniper, startled by the immediate, accurate return fire, hurried his shot. His round struck Miller a glancing blow in the shoulder instead of a killing centermass hit. Miller went down, wounded but alive, as the rest of the squad laid down a furious base of fire, driving the enemy back. That evening, in a hastily dug position, the squad conducted its grim after-action review. Over canned rations, Sergeant Makiewicz made the lesson explicit. You gotta keep a count in your head. 7 shots, then you move. Reload behind the thickest part of the damn hedge you can find. And you, he said, pointing to each pair of men, are your buddy's ears and eyes. When you hear his clip go, you're already covering his sector. That ping ain't just your problem. It's the whole fire team's signal. The realization, as recorded in the ethos of countless after-action reflections, was clear. We learned real quick. That ping meant cover me to your buddies, and I'm ready for you to any kraut who thought we were dumb enough to just stand there. The paradigm had begun its shift. The sound was no longer just a personal vulnerability. It was becoming a managed element of squad fire discipline, the first step toward turning a flaw into a weapon. Weeks later, in the same scarred Bocage country, the same squad, now veterans of a dozen such deadly games, operated with a hardened procedural efficiency. They had identified a likely sniper position. A second-story window of a battered stone farmhouse overlooking a crucial crossroads. The squad leader, Sergeant Makievich, no longer saw a trap, but an opportunity. He signaled for the squad to deploy into concealed firing positions, encircling the field of fire before the house. They were not walking into an ambush. They were setting one. The bait was chosen with care. Rifleman Carter, positioned behind the thick root wall of a hedgerow with a clear but narrow angle to the window, initiated contact. He fired a controlled, deliberate volley. Bang, bang, bang. 7 rounds in total, the bullets chipping the stone around the window frame. Then he performed the critical act. Still in deep cover, he pressed the clip latch with his thumb, manually ejecting the partially full clip and the single remaining cartridge. The distinct, high-frequency ping rang out across the quiet field. Carter did not move to reload. He remained perfectly still, his eyes fixed on the window, a fresh clip held ready in his left hand but not yet inserted. The stage was set. In the farmhouse, the German sniper, a seasoned sharpshooter, heard the sequence he was trained for, the rapid shots of a Garand, followed by the unmistakable metallic ring of the empty clip. His tactical assessment was logical and fatal. The American was exposed and vulnerable, reloading in his hedgerow. To acquire the perfect shot, the sniper needed a better angle. He shifted from his primary firing position at the rear of the room to a forward window on the side, one that offered a clearer line of sight to Carter's last known location. For 2 seconds, his silhouette was visible in the new aperture. It was all the time Corporal Jenkins needed. The squad's best marksman, positioned 80 yards to the flank in a concealed ditch, had not fired a single shot. His sole task was to watch for movement from any secondary window or firing port. His M1 sights were already trained on the very spot where the sniper now appeared. Jenkins exhaled, took up the final ounce of trigger pressure, and fired 1 round. The .30-06 bullet passed through the window frame and found its mark. The engagement was over. The squad carefully secured the position. Inside, they found the sniper's scoped K98K and his field notebook. There were no mocking notes about the American rifle's ping. Instead, the pages contained a meticulous tally of engagements, now permanently cut short. The German report from Normandy, earlier focused on the sound, now revealed a deeper, more respectful dread. The semi-automatic function of the American rifle allows a rate of fire which makes close combat against entrenched infantry exceedingly costly. The focus of enemy analysis had decisively shifted, from the brief moment of reloading to the overwhelming, accurate fire that preceded it, and to the cunning traps that now lay behind the once mocked sound. The psychological edge once held by the German sniper and infantryman evaporated in the face of American adaptation. The ping lost its reliability as an intelligence signal. It no longer guaranteed a vulnerable target. Now it could be a feint, a lure drawing one into the sights of a second unseen Garand. The once exploitable certainty was replaced by dangerous, paralyzing doubt. A German sniper hearing the sound could no longer act with confidence. He had to hesitate, to second-guess, and in combat, hesitation is fatal. The mockery over the mechanical quirk died, suffocated by the cold realization that the Americans had turned their own textbook tactic against them. Beyond the deception, the overwhelming tactical reality of the M1 proved decisive. Even in engagements where the ping signaled a genuine reload, the preceding 5 to 7 seconds of rapid, aimed fire had already shaped the fight. German after-action reports and infantry analyses from the latter half of 1944 increasingly, and with grudging respect, stressed the machine gun-like volume of fire produced by American rifle squads. This was a direct, if reluctant, tribute to the Garand. The weapon allowed a small unit to generate a base of suppressive fire previously only possible with a dedicated automatic weapons team, enabling flanking maneuvers and pinning defenders before they could effectively respond. This respect was captured in the voices of the enemy themselves. Interrogation reports of German prisoners of war consistently noted a specific fear of the M1's capabilities, particularly in the close-range defensive battles in forests and shattered cities. Captured Lancer and junior officers spoke of the disorienting shock of an American squad opening up with 8 semi-automatic rifles simultaneously, a wall of fire that felt like facing multiple light machine guns. The ultimate, backhanded compliment came not from words, but from Germany's own frantic arms development. The military's urgent push to field their own semi-automatic infantry rifles, the problematic Gur 41 and the improved Gur 43, was driven in significant part by the tactical gap demonstrated by the American Garand. They were not merely innovating. They were reacting, scrambling to close a firepower deficit that the M1 had brutally exposed. The journey from mocking a sound to imitating the system that produced it marked the complete collapse of their initial confidence. The cumulative effect of thousands of individual adaptations and duels scaled up to reshape battles. At the squad and company level, the M1 Garand provided a decisive, decentralized firepower advantage. A fully equipped U.S. rifle squad could generate a sustained volume of aimed fire that a German Gruppe, with its single, all-important machine gun, struggled to counter in the close-quarters chaos of the bocage or forest. If the MG-34 or 42 team was suppressed, blinded by smoke or outflanked, the riflemen's bolt-action Mausers could not match the 8 semi-automatic Garands now bearing down on them. This firepower asymmetry was a fundamental key to breaking the tactical stalemate in Normandy's hedgerows. American squads could now use their own rapid fire to suppress enemy positions effectively, providing the crucial covering fire that allowed fire teams to maneuver and assault, executing the very walking fire doctrine the rifle was born to serve. Beyond ballistics, the mastery of the weapon's perceived flaw delivered a profound morale component. The American infantryman's confidence grew not in spite of the ping, but through the process of overcoming it. He learned to trust his rifle, his buddy, and his training in the most visceral way possible. This translated directly into tactical aggressiveness. Squads became more willing to initiate contact, advance under fire, and engage in fluid, small unit actions, trusting in their ability to win the immediate firefight. The rifle was no longer just issued equipment. It was a source of earned confidence. This battlefield success served as the ultimate validation of pre-war U.S. infantry doctrine. The faith placed in the rapid-firing individual rifleman, a concept derided by some European contemporaries as wasteful, was vindicated in the hardest possible laboratory. The M1 was not merely a superior weapon. It was the perfect embodiment of the mobile, aggressive infantry doctrine it was designed to enable. It allowed American forces to fight the war of movement they had envisioned. The legacy of this performance echoed far beyond the surrender in 1945. The M1 Garand set an enduring standard for U.S. infantry armament. Its effectiveness directly influenced the design philosophy behind its successor, the select-fire M14 rifle, and cemented the core principle that the individual soldier must possess a high volume of aimed fire capability. This lineage, through the M14, ultimately informed the requirements for the M16 rifle and the 5.56 mm cartridge, ensuring that the lessons written in blood in the hedgerows and forests of Europe, that firepower, speed, and adaptability at the rifleman level win battles, would be encoded into the American infantry's DNA for generations. The duel between the audible ping and the 8-round en-bloc clip is far more than a curious infantry anecdote. It serves as a powerful microcosm of the larger American way of war in the Second World War. First, it demands a direct correction of a popular historical misconception. The enduring myth frames the M1's ejection sound as a catastrophic, war-losing flaw. The verified historical record tells a different story. It was a noted tactical detail, identified by the enemy and painfully realized by troops in early combat, that was rapidly recognized, systematically adapted to, and, in a stunning reversal, ingeniously exploited by those very troops. The story isn't about a crippling weakness. It's about the speed and ingenuity applied to neutralize and then weaponize it. This narrative illuminates fundamental American strengths: pragmatic adaptation and decentralized problem-solving. Faced with a mechanical characteristic that gave the enemy an edge, the U.S. system responded not with a futile demand for a silent rifle, but with immediate, multi-layered solutions. Official doctrine was adjusted through training circulars. Squad leaders enforced new drills, and the GIs themselves, in the finest tradition of frontline ingenuity, invented field expedients like the taped jungle clip and the ultimate deception of using the ping as bait. A problem was identified, and solutions were evolved through training, innovation, and small unit leadership, all within the span of a single campaign season. As such, the M1 Garand, ping and all, transcended its role as a tool to become the enduring symbol of the American GI. It represented the nation's industrial might, mass-produced to an unprecedented standard of reliability. It embodied a philosophical trust in the individual soldier, granting him unprecedented personal firepower. And it was the physical manifestation of an aggressive, mobile infantry doctrine that valued initiative and volume of fire. Historians continue to debate its precise impact. Some, like Stephen Ambrose, have rightly romanticized its role in the hands of the citizen soldier, while others conduct granular analysis comparing its effectiveness to the German MG or the Soviet PPSH. Yet the consensus remains firm. It was the best standard-issue service rifle of the war. The final, most compelling verdict comes not from historians, but from the enemy and its most famous American champion. General George S. Patton famously and unequivocally called it the greatest battle implement ever devised. This praise is well-sourced, but the more telling verdict is found in the silent German mockery and the operational reports filled with respect and fear. The journey from a captured training note exploiting the ping to a German infantry analysis lamenting the exceedingly costly combat against semi-automatic fire marks the true historical arc. The M1 Garand, with its distinctive and once-mocked chorus, didn't just win firefights. It shifted psychological and tactical paradigms, securing its legacy as the rifle that armed the arsenal of democracy. The journey of the M1's ping provides a masterclass in tactical evolution. It began with German intelligence reports coldly cataloging an apparent mechanical flaw, a perceived chink in the armor of the American infantryman. It ended with that very sound being used as the hook in a deadly trap, turned against its original exploiters through sheer skill, adaptability, and frontline brilliance. This was not a story of perfect technology, but of human ingenuity mastering technology's imperfections under the most extreme duress imaginable. Ultimately, this story transcends the rifle itself. The ping was merely a mechanical consequence of John Garand's design. The ability to fire 8 aimed rounds in 10 seconds was a product of American industrial engineering. But the decision to tape a second clip for a faster reload, the discipline to keep a round count, the instinct to lay down covering fire at the sound of a buddy's empty weapon, and the cunning to manually eject a clip to mimic vulnerability, these were the products of the American soldier. In his hands, a perceived liability was assessed, understood, and integrated into a new, more lethal form of combat. The weapon did not change. The men wielding it did. By war's end, over 5.5 million M1 Garands had been produced. They were fired in anger from the frozen hedgerows of the Ardennes to the steaming jungles of Okinawa, from the dunes of North Africa to the mountains of Italy. Every single one of them, without exception, announced its empty state with that distinctive metallic ring. And yet, this rifle, and more importantly the men who carried it, served as the primary instrument of liberation for a continent and the defeat of a tyrant in the Pacific. The sound did not hinder the victory. It became part of its soundtrack. What other ingenious adaptations did frontline soldiers make with their gear? What piece of standard-issue equipment did they turn from a liability into a lifesaver through sheer fieldcraft and courage? Let us know in the comments, and subscribe as we continue to drill down into the real, gritty, and ingenious history of the soldiers who fought World War II. So the next time you hear that distinctive ping, whether in an archive film or a documentary, remember, it wasn't the sound of weakness. In the ears of a trained American rifleman, it was the sound of a clip well spent, and the first note in the reloading symphony of the most formidable infantry rifle of its age.